Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in. Thanks for joining me on this Thankful Thursday. You know, last week I said we're going to reinvent Thankful Thursday, where you send me stories of things that you're thankful for. You can email those to me. You can text them. You can call me and leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com and place your order. President Donald Trump says he's still considering what the U.S. role in Israel's strikes on Iran will be, saying, I'll decide 1 second before it's due. Senator Ron Johnson, a former accountant, literally tears into what he calls misleading claims about the true cost of President Trump's big, beautiful bill. We have an update on where the bill stands in the U.S. Senate. And the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 6-3 yesterday to uphold a Tennessee law banning medical procedures intended to alter a minor's gender identity, a major decision that reshapes the legal landscape around transgender care in America that has the transgender community standing on its head. And the Federal Reserve announced yesterday that it will leave its benchmark interest rate unchanged following its June monetary policy meeting. The decision keeps the federal funds target rate at 4.25 to 4.5%, unchanged for the fourth consecutive meeting.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, you know, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
President Trump yesterday says he hasn't decided whether the United States will join Israel in military strikes against Iranian nuclear sites, but made it very clear that he's keeping that option on the table until the last possible moment. Trump told reporters in the Oval Office, I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, because things change, especially with war. Things change with war. It can go from one extreme to the other. Now, the president said he was headed to the White House Situation Room for further deliberations when he made that statement yesterday, saying, I'm not looking for a fight, but we may have to. He emphasized that his preference is for diplomacy, but said stopping Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon remains a red line. Trump said, I'm not looking to fight, but if it's a choice between them fighting or having a nuclear weapon, you have to do what you have to do, and maybe we don't have to fight. He credited Israel with carrying out a very good job, but didn't elaborate on whether the U.S. had played any supporting role in the recent strikes. Despite the heightened military activity, Trump said that Iranian officials have indicated they're open to direct talks with Washington. We'll see. The president said any future talks would follow weeks of behind-the-scenes warnings to Tehran, including a now-expired 60-day window he says he gave Iran to come to the table voluntarily and limit uranium enrichment. One of the biggest military questions now, Trump suggested, is whether Israel can destroy the Fordo nuclear site, Iran's most protected enrichment facility, which is buried deep inside a mountain. The answer may depend on U.S. technology, though. The president said, we're the only ones that have the capability to do it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do it at all. He didn't specify whether that capability refers to bunker-busting munitions, advanced stealth aircraft, or satellite intelligence. As tensions escalate, The president huddled repeatedly with his top military and intelligence officials as they try to assess the state of the conflict. A White House official described the mood as calm but resolute, saying everyone is ready to execute his decision. That's how this White House is. He calls to play, we execute. The administration has reportedly reviewed intelligence tied to both Israeli operations and Iran's retaliatory capabilities. While Trump declined to comment on classified assessments, sources say that the U.S. is monitoring Iranian missile movement and possible responses in the Gulf region, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. We do know that the Navy is sending warships to the area very quickly so that we have assets in the area if they are needed. The situation on the ground in Iran remains quite volatile, according to reports. Images shared widely on social media show thick smoke billowing over parts of Tehran. We saw yesterday and continue today just mass exodus of people from the Tehran area. Highways literally just jammed for miles and miles and miles as people were trying to evacuate. That'd be a horrible feeling, wouldn't it? To have to pack up whatever you can get into your vehicle and leave home, not knowing if you're going to have a home there when you return, or if you'll ever return for that matter. Traffic was gridlocked. You saw major roadways. This was after President Trump issued a public warning to Iranian civilians to evacuate certain areas. This message amplified by a lot of people, and social media has played a big role in that. The social media, of course, is worldwide. Although some internet service providers can block certain things, but it appears that that social media is used to spread the word among people that, hey, you need to get out. You're in a danger zone. You need to pack your family up as quickly as possible and flee the area. Meanwhile, Iranian Red Crescent crews were seen sifting through rubble in images that were released yesterday. The full extent of damage is still unconfirmed, but we do know that Israel has been quite efficient in destroying a lot of buildings in Tehran. It's just sad all the way around. When you see images of some of these apartment buildings and complete neighborhoods that appear to just be destroyed, knowing that families live there, knowing that those are homes. Now, yes, they're homes of people in Iran who have just a horrible regime. But you got to believe that the rank and file, most of those Iranian citizens, have nothing to do with it. They have no control over it. They have been oppressed for years. Now, back to President Trump's decision. His eventual decision, the stakes are just so high here, with Israel reportedly planning additional strikes in the coming days and Iran threatening retaliation. We don't know where this is headed. I shared with you yesterday some polling data that indicates that most Americans across all political beliefs, Republican, Democrat, independents, conservatives, liberals, leftists, that pretty much across all spectrums are opposed of the U.S. having a direct involvement in the conflict. So the question is to you today, and I'd love to get your feedback. You can text me. You can email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, is if, in fact, President Trump makes the decision for us to be directly involved, are you okay with that? Steve Bannon, who is a Trump loyalist, one of President Trump's biggest defenders and supporters, says that he is not that he is totally opposed to us becoming directly involved. However, Bannon predicted that if, in fact, President Trump does decide to get the country involved, that his loyal supporters will, in Steve Bannon's words, quote, get on board if the commander-in-chief decides to launch the U.S. into this spiraling Israel-Iran conflict. Despite the warning that another war in the Middle East would only tear the country apart, the radio podcast host, the popular War Room host, who has boasted that he's one of the biggest names in MAGA, and he is, doubled down saying he's convinced the U.S. could stay away from the conflict even though he still trusts President Trump's leadership, and he still trusts the eventual decision that President Trump makes. Bannon said, and the MAGA movement, there'll be some who disagree, but the vast majority of the MAGA movement will go, look, we trust your judgment. You'll walk us through this. If we don't like it, in fact, maybe we hate it, but we'll get on board with you. He added that another war in the Middle East is just not a good thing, and it's not for us to be involved in that, for that matter, or for the entire world. Bannon said at an event hosted by the Christian Science Monitor, I know, and particularly his skills as a communicator, that Trump will come and walk people through this. Will explain it to us. We'll see. We'll see. Let's pray that it doesn't come to that. Let's pray that President Trump doesn't have to make the decision on whether or not we'll be involved. Joey Hudson here. America is facing a health crisis, and the answer isn't more meds. I lost over 30 pounds on the PhD weight loss plan without Ozempic or any weight loss shots. Don't settle for a lifetime of medication. GLP-1 injections like Ozempic help some people lose weight, but they come with side effects, high cost, and most gain it back when they stop. At PhD Weight Loss, we reveal Big Pharma's big secret. Your body already makes GLP-1, the appetite-fighting hormone. Our program helps your body make it naturally so you'll drop the pounds faster. With the PhD method, no side effects, no long-term risk, no rebound weight gain, just natural, lasting results, all without hunger or cravings. Right now, get a free body scan and personalized metabolic assessment. Discover your body's true potential without a shot. It's free and gives you the keys to your personalized plan. Do like I did and don't trade your health for a quick fix. Call now at 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com, myphdweightloss.com. It was a big decision yesterday when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 6-3 to uphold a Tennessee law that bans medical procedures intended to alter a minor's gender identity. Again, a major decision that literally reshapes the legal landscape around transgender care in America. At the heart of the case, United States versus Skrmetti, was Tennessee Senate Bill 1, SB 1. It's a law that bars healthcare providers from administering puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and gender transition surgeries to minors. The law specifically prohibits treatments intended to help a child, quote, identify with or live as a purported identity inconsistent with the minor's biological sex, or to treat discomfort stemming from gender dysphoria. In his opinion, for the majority, Chief Justice John Roberts made it very clear that the court saw the law as within constitutional bounds, ruling that SB 1 does not violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which is a common argument among a lot of the groups who are out there promoting transgender care, who believe that parents should be allowed to make the decision of their minor children to start altering the gender that God put them on this earth to be. Roberts wrote, this case carries with it the weight of fierce scientific and policy debates about the safety, efficacy, and propriety of medical treatments in an evolving field. Our role is not to judge the wisdom, fairness, or logic of the law before us, but only to ensure that it does not violate the equal protection guarantee of the 14th Amendment. Now, the majority rejected the argument that Tennessee's law targets a suspect or quasi-suspect class, such as race or gender, requiring heightened scrutiny. Justice Roberts emphasized that the law does not classify based on transgender status alone, but rather focuses on the procedures themselves, which are barred for all minors regardless of identity. He reiterated that policy disagreements on these treatments should be resolved by legislatures, not by the federal courts. He wrote, the Equal Protection Clause does not resolve these disagreements, nor does it afford us license to decide them as we see best. Now, this ruling signals that the court believes that state legislatures, not unelected judges, are the best equipped to weigh the scientific and the moral arguments surrounding gender transition procedures for minors. They might want to throw in the Bible, the teachings of the Bible, should hold heavily on those decisions. As you can imagine, the dissent was pretty strong. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, joined by Justices Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson, accused the majority of abandoning vulnerable children to political forces. Wow. I don't know how anybody could argue that these types of treatments are good for children. Sotomayor argued that SB 1 clearly classifies based on both sex and transgender status and should therefore be subject to intermediate scrutiny, which is the legal standard applied to laws that differentiate based on gender. She wrote, by retreating from meaningful judicial review exactly where it matters most, the court abandons transgender children and their families to political whims. In sadness, I dissent. Sotomayor further warned that allowing states to override decisions made between doctors, patients, and parents could create a chilling precedent in healthcare regulation. This is more than healthcare. This is altering nature. I don't know how anyone can make the argument that a parent should be allowed to allow their child, who is not even an adult yet, to start making this type of decision. If someone is really having issues with their gender, let them become an adult. Let them live life a little. Then they can make that decision. But for children, some as young as 13, 14, 15 years old, to start allowing them to transition to another gender is just crazy. And I can't imagine parents who are in that situation who think that's right. This case emerged as one of the most high-profile cases of the Supreme Court's current term. The decision now sets a precedent for how similar state laws will be reviewed by federal courts across the country, or at least how they should be viewed. You're probably still going to have some of these rogue judges who still believe they're smarter than the rest of the world, and they'll have some of these crazy decisions. This case originated from a legal challenge filed by the ACLU, surprise, surprise, on behalf of 3 transgender minors and their families, as well as a Memphis-based doctor. They argued that Tennessee's law effectively singles out transgender children for denial of care and places their health at risk. Now, the Biden administration initially supported the challenge, but the position was reversed after President Donald Trump returned to office in January. Just another byproduct of having a common-sense president in the White House. In February, the Justice Department under Trump withdrew its support, stating that the Tennessee law did not violate the Constitution. The decision comes amid a broader political and cultural battle over transgender rights, particularly when it comes to children and adolescents. Since 2022, more than 20 states have passed laws restricting or outright banning transgender medical treatments for minors. These include bans on hormone therapy, puberty blockers, and surgeries that permanently alter these kids' bodies. In many cases, the laws have been met with lawsuits from civil rights groups and healthcare providers. The ACLU and these woke groups who think that this should be allowed. Opponents of the law argue that they constitute discrimination and deny necessary, potentially life-saving care. Supporters say the bans are designed to protect children from irreversible medical decisions and to give them more time to mature before making such choices, which is what I was just saying a minute ago. My argument is a child at 15, 16, 17 years old even, they don't have the ability, they don't have life experience, the maturity to be making these types of decisions. And they shouldn't be made. And their parents shouldn't be bending to their whim just simply because they believe that the little boy thinks suddenly he's a little girl. During our oral arguments, Justice Samuel Alito pressed the government's attorney on whether there was conclusive evidence proving that these treatments' long-term benefits. He cited studies showing a lack of high-quality data supporting their safety and effectiveness. Again, I think it's very simple. You don't try to undo what God has already done. It should be just that simple. We continue to learn more about the man accused of assassinating Minnesota Democrat State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark. This is weird. Minnesota murder suspect Vance Bolter once worked extracting eyeballs from corpses, according to a former roommate. Man accused of executing a chilling political assassination. That's what it was. It was a political assassination. Held a job as the extracting eyeballs from corpses for organ donation. Vance Bolter, of course, facing both federal and state charges for the murders of Democrat State Representative Hortman and her husband, attempted murders of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. According to David Carlson, a friend and former roommate, Bolter worked as a mortuary technician tasked with organ harvesting, specifically eyeball extraction at various funeral homes in the area. Carlson said the last time he saw Bolter was last Friday, just hours before the shooting spree. Bolter had recently been employed by Metro First Call, a funeral home based in Savage, Minnesota, which confirmed he worked there between August 2023 to February 2025. The company issued a brief statement following news of the arrest, saying, "We'd like to extend our thoughts and condolences to the families of the victims. This is devastating news for all." As far as Vance Bolter is concerned, he worked for our company until he voluntarily left in February 2025. Wow. A job removing eyeballs. Guess somebody has to do it because someone received those eyeballs, I guess, as an organ donor. Maybe they have sight today because of it, because of the job he did. The Federal Reserve announced yesterday that it will leave the benchmark interest rates unchanged following its June monetary policy meeting. The funds will stay at a targeted rate of 4.25% to 4.5%. And this is the fourth consecutive meeting that they've had that they have not changed interest rates. The Fed's last cut rates in December 2024 and has not moved them since. Yesterday's announcement confirms that the central bank is holding the line, if you will, resisting calls for more aggressive rate cuts while closely monitoring economic trends, according to Fox News. In its post-meeting statement, the Federal Open Market Committee said, quote, "Although swings in net exports have affected the data, recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. The unemployment rate remains low and labor market conditions remain solid. Inflation remains somewhat elevated." Now, the uncertainty has diminished. The Fed noted that it remains attentive to risk on both sides of its mandate, maximum employment and price stability, with a long-run inflation goal of 2%. The Fed also released its updated summary of economic projections, it's known as dot plot, outlining its policy outlook. The Fed's projections forecast the following. PCE inflation to rise to 3% in 2025, falling to 2.4% in 2026, and then down to 2.1% in 2027. Real GDP growth to slow to 1.4% in 2025, they think. Then they believe that it will start rising modestly in the following years. And unemployment, they believe, will increase to 4.5% in both 2025, 2026, dipping slightly in 2027. I have no idea how they know this stuff and how they can predict this over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. But hey, that's why they get paid the big bucks, I guess. Speaking at a post-announcement press conference, Fed Chair Jerome Powell described the U.S. economy as being in a, quote, solid position, though he did acknowledge that inflation remains above target and that risks have shifted amid global tensions and domestic policy changes, and citing some of the uncertainty around the world. He added, "Our current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments." One of the key variables that Powell addressed was the renewed use of tariffs, which is, of course, something that President Donald Trump has championed. Tariffs on Chinese goods, European steel, and other imports have recently been implemented or expanded by the Trump administration. Powell said that their effects are likely to feed into inflation and possibly dampen economic activity depending on their magnitude and their duration, he said. He said increases in tariffs this year are likely to push up prices and weigh on economic activity. He also warned that the delayed nature of tariff pass-through means some impacts are yet to appear in consumer prices. Goods already in stores were often imported months ago under pre-tariff conditions, and his belief is that we're going to see an increase in prices in the coming months and year. President Trump, who, of course, appointed Powell back in his first term in 2017, but has frequently been critical of him, lashed out against yesterday's announcements. The president said Powell is a stupid person, accusing the Fed of holding back the economy by not cutting rates further. Powell, when asked about the president's comments, declined to respond directly. Powell said, we're focused on doing our jobs and delivering a strong American economy with a strong labor market and stable prices. Powell's not going to take the bait, is he? He also would not comment on whether he would remain at the Fed if not reappointed as chair next year, saying he's solely focused on policy decisions. Powell emphasized that monetary policy must be forward-looking and not reactive to every piece of incoming data. And look, I guess in his defense, he is pretty good at staying calm and not necessarily responding to everything that happens. I guess that's good, don't you think? Powell said the economy seems to be in solid shape. The labor market is not crying out for a rate cut. Businesses have started adjusting to the new landscape, and the tone is more constructive than it was a few months ago. Markets, of course, took the Fed's decision in a good way, with few surprises in the statement of Powell's remarks. Some of the forecast shifted expectations. For example, the probability of the Fed holding rates begin in July rose from 83% to 89%. The odds of a 25 basis point rate cut in September climbed from 53 to over 61. So I think the powers that be in the financial world are kind of getting us ready to accept the fact that we're kind of stuck where we are for now. We're not going to see interest rates falling anytime soon. So if you've been thinking about waiting out mortgage rates until they drop before you purchase that new home, or maybe before you sell yours, don't plan for anything anytime soon if you're waiting on interest rates to fall, because it doesn't appear that they're going to be coming down anytime soon. A lot of people responding. Look, despite pressure from some of the political and business sectors, it's very apparent that the Fed is unlikely to move rates until it sees, in its opinion, more sustained progress towards its inflation target or a clear slowdown in job creation and consumer spending. They have their own data points, and they're going to stick to it. Powell signaled openness to adjusting policy as needed. He maintained a steady tone aimed at preventing market overreaction or premature rate cut expectations, according to Fox Business, as they're reporting on this. Powell said we'll continue to make decisions meeting by meeting based on the totality of incoming data and evolving outlook. Joe Biden's mental decline is back in the headlines. Republican lawmakers on the Senate Judiciary Committee tore into their Democrat colleagues yesterday after most of them skipped a high-profile hearing focused on the former president's alleged cognitive decline while in office, an absence the GOP interpreted as tacit acknowledgement of a years-long cover-up. Senator John Cornyn from Texas said, a few of my Democrat colleagues are here today. He said, we're left with no other option than to take the boycott of this hearing as an admission of guilt for their role in this crisis. The hearing, which is titled Unfit to Serve, How the Biden Cover-Up Endangered America and Undermined the Constitution, featured testimony from conservative legal scholars and a former Trump press secretary. But the panel's Democrat members, 10 of them in all, were absent, save for Senator Peter Welch and Dick Durbin, who both exited early in protest. Durbin, who chairs the subcommittee, called the hearing a partisan distraction and accused Republicans of ignoring press national concerns, including political violence, the recent Minnesota assassination of a state lawmaker, and President Trump's military deployment in Los Angeles. Welch echoed the sentiment, saying the hearing offered nothing of value to his constituents. Now, Senator Ted Cruz unleashed what is described as a fiery condemnation of Democrats and the media, accusing them of knowingly hiding Biden's health conditions from you and me, the voters. Cruz said not a single Democrat is here because not a single one of them gives a damn that they lied to the American people for 4 years. Every one of them knew Joe Biden was not mentally competent, and they covered it up, he said. Cruz claimed the Biden administration shielded the president from interaction with Republican senators throughout his term. He says it wasn't a surprise they hid him, wouldn't let him meet with us, he said. Senator Eric Schmidt from Missouri joined the chorus, accusing Democrats of abdication, saying by refusing to engage in this critical examination, they abandoned their duty to the American people. These absences speaks volumes. Well, of course they don't want to talk about this. Of course they're not going to be there to talk about Joe Biden because they have no defense. They know that he was mentally incompetent, and they can't defend it. So rather than try, they just ignore it, just like they ignored the fact that he wasn't competent the 4 years he was in office. That's the way Democrats govern. They ignore stuff when they don't understand it or they don't have an answer for it. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you could trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. A Newberry County, South Carolina man who killed a police dog has been sentenced to 12 and a half years in federal prison for shooting Koba, the canine officer, with a gun he could not legally possess. Here's the story. James Robert Peterson's prior convictions prevented him from having guns. He's 38 years old, lived in Prosperity, South Carolina. He was carrying a shotgun when law enforcement officers attempted to arrest him at his mother's home. This was June 11th in 2024. They were going to arrest him on burglary charges. He fatally shot Koba, a canine with the state law enforcement division, who was between Peterson and three officers in the doorway, according to prosecutors. Peterson pleaded guilty to being a felon in possession of a firearm. Judge Jacqueline Austin sentenced him to 150 months in federal prison. The state's U.S. Attorney's Office announced the sentence yesterday. There's no parole in the federal system. That's in addition to his 33-year sentence in March on state charges of first-degree burglary, attempted murder, cruelty to a police dog, and resisting arrest with a deadly weapon. David Stumbo, the solicitor who prosecuted this case in Newberry County, South Carolina, told legislators in April that only 5 of those 33 years were for killing Koba, the canine officer, one of 5 police dogs killed in the line of duty last year in South Carolina. The prosecutor said, "We didn't believe that 5 years was nearly enough time," as he is asking senators to make it a much more serious offense. In addition to Stumbo, sheriffs from Greenville and Richland County also testified in support of a bill that would increase the prison time and fines for anyone killing or injuring a police dog or horse in the state. What do you think about that? I tend to agree. To kill a canine officer should be a very serious offense. The existing penalty is up to 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. The proposal authored by Goose Creek Republican Brian Adams would increase penalties to $20,000 and 10 years in prison. I'm not so sure it shouldn't be more than that. What do you think? What should the penalty for killing a police dog or horse be? Email me. Text me. You can email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. By the way, Mike Lindell and the MyPillow employees want to thank all of you for your continued support. Mike has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. He did not stop by creating the best pillow. He created the best bed sheets ever. He's offering the best deal on his Percal bed sheets. You can get a set. You ready for this? For $24.98 when you use promo code Joey at mypillow.com. You can also call 800-893-4059. Have your credit card ready. The MyPillow Percal sheets are breathable. They have a cool, crisp feel. They have deep pockets to fit over any size mattress. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me and my busy schedule. And look, you're busy too. Also, for a limited time, when you order more than $100 worth of product, you're going to receive $100 of free digital gifts. Again, $24.98 for a set of Percal bed sheets. You can't beat that when you use promo code Joey. Go to mypillow.com or call 800-893-4059. Do it today. Senator Ron Johnson, who is a former accountant, I'm not sure I ever knew that. He, and a long-time deficit hawk at that, he released a 31-page analysis yesterday warning that the Republican-backed One Big Beautiful Bill Act could balloon the national deficit by trillions of dollars, he said, which basically is challenging the White House on their claims that the measure is fiscally responsible. The legislation, of course, a sweeping tax and spending package at the heart of President Trump's economic agenda, has been supported by supporters as a blueprint for wage growth, for manufacturing revival. But Johnson's analysis, based in part on data from the Congressional Budget Office, which is suspect at best, paints a far more alarming picture, which I guess you could say that this means he's not going to be in supportive of it or not supportive of it at its current version. Now, according to Senator Johnson, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act would add at least $3 trillion to the deficit over the next decade, contributing to what he projects will be a $24.1 trillion increase in the national debt under current policy. Johnson said at a press conference, the White House is relying on misleading accounting to make this look fiscally sound, but the numbers don't lie. His report takes particular aim at a recent White House memo claiming that the bill, combined with new tariff revenues and discretionary spending cuts, would cut the deficit by $6.7 to $6.9 trillion over the next 10 years. Senator Johnson says those figures are wildly optimistic. At best, he says, the policies could shave $2.5 trillion off of the baseline deficit, and even that is unlikely given political and legal uncertainties, he said. Johnson is skeptical that the proposed discretionary spending cuts will survive Democrat opposition or that President Trump's newly imposed tariffs will withstand legal scrutiny. He warned that courts could block tariff expansions and that Congress will likely water down the spending cuts in future budget fights. He said this is massive. This is a consequential bill. We ought to be looking at it with eyes wide open, not through rose-colored glasses. Now, he acknowledged that he's not a professional economist, but said that the analysis was his attempt to foster what he called a real debate around the bill's long-term implications. Johnson reportedly shared the draft with Trump's top economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, to give the administration a chance to respond. Perhaps most notably, Senator Johnson's analysis challenges a key talking point of Trump-era Republicans, that the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act paid for itself. The senator said the claim that TCJA paid for itself in 7 years is hard to support. The One Big Beautiful Bill would renew and make permanent several of the tax cuts, a top priority, of course, of Republicans and a top priority of President Donald Trump. This is going to be interesting to watch. Again, I'm not sure if Senator Johnson is floating this trial balloon to strengthen his negotiating position to try to get some of the things he wants, either in the bill or out of the bill. He floated several potential remedies, including a forensic audit of several federal outlays, which would be just a wide sweeping review that he argues would have more impact on the current Department of Governmental Efficiency, which he called underpowered. He's very supportive of it. He thinks that they need to have more hands on deck. He also expressed skepticism that the bill can pass the Senate on its current timeline. President Trump has publicly pushed for Senate passage by July the 4th, but Senator Johnson says that is unrealistic. He said, I don't think this gets through next week. And look, with accusations like this, with challenges that he put out there yesterday, I'm not sure that it gets through either, not in its current form. Senator Johnson's report arrived the same week. The CBO released a dynamic scoring estimate, another one big, beautiful bill, which is just a more sophisticated projection of the legislation's potential impact on economic growth. Johnson's analysis was finalized before the CBO released its new score. He acknowledged a legitimate critique of the CBO's modeling. He said its assumption of only 1.8% GDP growth despite a 2.21% average from 2000 to 2024. The Senate, of course, led by Majority Leader John Thune, is working to modify the House-passed bill to try to secure the votes that is needed to get this passed. Look, all I got to say is, Senator Johnson, I appreciate your work on this. Maybe some of the concerns you've raised are legitimate. I don't know. It's above my pay grade. I just know that we got to get it passed somehow, in some fashion. We need to keep those tax cuts permanent. We need to let President Trump do what we elected him to do. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.